Welcome back to Iowa Live. Lou and Michelle here with our good friend Kim Baer, attorney at law. And I know, of course, we're talking about national championships that were just crowned last night. LSU winning the national championship last night. Of course, we have the big game coming up in the NFL. So this is like the super time of year when it comes to various sports. And it sounds like, Kim Baer, this is a super time of year for those people that are in the realm of having to get a divorce or planning a divorce, which sounds unusual, but it's the reality of the situation.
It is. Unfortunately, we call, so this past Monday, we call Black Monday, which means that that's when the phones ring off the hook. And so what happens is, for divorces, so what happens is people get through the holidays. They probably have already decided that they want to get a divorce, but they, nobody wants to, ruin anybody's holiday.
Go through that.
Exactly. So typically then what happens is we see divorce rates spike in January, February, and March. So, so what I speculate about is that it's because of the holidays, and then also what we do see in our office is a lot of times people will come in, they'll have the consultation, and they'll say, all right, I want to hire you, I'll be back after I get my tax refund, because that's what they're going to use to pay the retainer.
Oh, okay.
So that's what we see. So it's just, and it could be, maybe it's the weather, I don't know, people get gloomy, but it's just really strange that the first 3 months of every year, the rates
So is this your busiest time of year then?
For divorces. For divorces.
Just for divorces?
Yes, just for divorces. It absolutely is. So what I thought we'd talk about today is what is marital property. So if you're either thinking about going through a divorce, or maybe you've got a friend going through a divorce, or you're just kind of curious about what your rights would be, what you need to know is, so Iowa is an equitable division state. And what that means is that the court has the authority and power to divide anything it wants to. So whatever it thinks is fair. There are kind of some guidelines that we try to follow. So for example, inheritance. Typically inheritance is treated as your separate property. But then the question is what did you do with it after you received it? Did you put it in a joint checking account with your spouse? Did you go buy something for your spouse? Has it been spent? If it's been spent, you can't recoup it. But if you put it into a joint account and it's still sitting there, a joint account with your spouse, sometimes we can argue that we can trace it and that you should get that money back. So what I tell people all the time is, if you receive an inheritance and you really don't want to treat it as joint marital property, keep it separate. Keep it in a separate account. Don't commingle it with marital money.
Just leave it alone.
Exactly. Then the other thing that people need to know, let's say that you inherit a farm, and let's say that, Lou, you and I are married and you inherit a farm. And so for 10 years now, I've helped you with the farm. Maybe I've helped, drive the tractor. I've helped, whatever. I've done chores. And so that's really our only asset. And so now we're going to get divorced. So we have a couple of things that the court's going to look at. Is it really fair to say, well, that was inherited, so that's all Lou's. Kim, you're out of luck. There are cases out there where the court says, oh, we don't think that's really fair. So we're going to give Kim a portion of the farm.
Because you've put 10 years of sweat equity into it.
Exactly, because I've helped work on it. And, and it's probably appreciated during the marriage, too. So gifts typically are kind of off limits. So one question we always get is the wedding ring.
Okay, so you said gifts, and that's really what a wedding ring is. It is a gift.
It is a gift. And it's a gift with a promise. And so an engagement ring is, here's the wedding ring, here's the engagement ring. If we get married, it's yours. Now, if you don't get married, then you would have a claim to try to get it back, because it was a gift with a promise.
Oh, really?
Right.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Right. But if she went through, she or he, because I suppose, you could have an expensive, wedding ring for a guy, too. So if the person went through with the wedding, then they've fulfilled their part, and that is now their separate property.
Really?
Yes. Same thing with regard to, if you have a habit. Let's say we're married and you have a habit of buying me just fabulous jewelry at Christmas time. That jewelry is mine because it's a gift. So when we go to divide things up, what I often hear from people, well, she's got $50,000 worth of jewelry that I spent, and I always have to go back through and say, okay, well, how did she get the jewelry? When did you give it to her? So same thing for guys. If you've got an expensive Rolex watch that maybe your family bought you, your kids bought you, or your parents gave you. So it doesn't just have to be from your spouse, but if it was a gift to you and only you, it is your separate property.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So sometimes too, talking about gifts before we move on to the next topic, checks. So sometimes parents, let's say that we're married and your parents always give you a check every year for Christmas for $5,000.
Okay.
They're like, here, Lou and Kim, go spend the money. So my argument might be, well, that was to both of us. So a lot of times what we do is we go back and we dig. Was the check made out just to you? Was it made out to both of us? How was it made out? Because maybe all that money now is sitting in a bank account, or we've paid down our mortgage with it, and you're arguing, well, mom and dad have given me $5,000 every year, so I get the first $50,000 out of the house.
Okay.
And I'm saying, no, they loved me too. The check was for me.
Right.
So then the question is, we look at the check.
That's going to go back and look and see whose name's on the check.
Whose name's on the check, and we got to go talk to mom and dad. What was their intent at the time of the gift? So anyway, so that's kind of what you need to know about gifts and inheritance.
Wow.
So another topic that comes up all the time is, let's say that you wait to get married and you already own a house. And we'll use us as an example again. Let's say we get married and you owned a house that's worth $100,000.
Got it.
We've been married for 10 years and now it's worth $150,000. $50,000 of that is appreciation during the marriage, and it's marital property. So the first 100 you would get.
All right. So that is for the person that bought the house. That is theirs.
That is theirs.
But the increase in value, that would be marital property.
Because it happened during the marriage.
Got it.
And here's a common misunderstanding. It does not matter whether or not you put me on the deed or not. Maybe you thought, I'm not sure about whether it's going to work out with Kim, so I'm just going to keep the house in my name.
Yep.
And now we're getting divorced, and you say, too bad, the house is only in my name. Because we have people that come in all the time, and they say, oh, that son of a gun, he kept everything in his name. I should have known. And we have to tell people, it doesn't matter whose name it's in.
Really?
It doesn't, because it's an equitable, the courts have equitable powers, and they just look at what's fair, and they say, okay, this is what he owned when he got married.
And to be honest, that would be the fair way to do it.
It is the fair way to do it. It is the fair way to do it. Now, there are some courts out there that might say, you know what, we think it's fair that you should have the whole house. Kim shouldn't get any of it. But it depends on the circumstances. So you just need to know that what I've been talking about are kind of general guidelines.
Right.
But it's up to the court to decide what's fair in each situation.
Okay, so this is the busy time of year.
What about money that you're accumulating through work, investment, or so forth during that time of being married, but you've kept it separate? It's not really kind of define a little bit more clearly kind of that idea of keeping things separate and joint.
So from the day you get married until the day you get divorced, unless you've been separated for a while, then sometimes we can look at the day of separation. But basically anything you earn during your marriage is marital property. Because I'll have people come in and they'll say, this is my 401k. I worked hard for it. She didn't work at all, or he didn't work at all. This was, and maybe this person was lazy, And so people get kind of incredulous about it, and they say, I'm the one that really busted my butt. My spouse didn't do anything. And I have to explain to them, well, that's who you picked. That's who you're married to.
Right.
And
so all your investments, it increases in your investments.
Exactly.
If it did increase, hopefully that's the case.
Yes. During the marriage.
That is marital property. The increase is marital property.
The increase if you had it before and you never then put marital money into it, or your 401k. I mean, if we've been married and you put, $10,000 in your 401k every year, and I'm at home on the couch eating bonbons, and you're upset about that, and that's why you're going to divorce me, I'm still going to say, okay, give me half your 401k. And that's what the judge is most likely going to do.
Really?
Because we were married. So, yeah, so, sometimes it doesn't really seem fair, but, courts say, look, these are decisions you made. Maybe you didn't feel like you were making it, but this is the person you picked. This is who you hitched your wagon to. And we're just going to look at from the date you got married till the end.
All right, Kim, you have some answers that people may want to hear and maybe not. But the bottom line is you need to find out the correct answers.
Yeah,
and
you need to.
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure, just give us a call. Come in and have a cup of coffee, and we'll talk about whatever your questions are.
All right, it's playoff time when it comes to divorces, and Kim is your commissioner.
I didn't realize there was a season for that in the year.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Thank you so much, Kim. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right.